Thank you very much. I seem a little nervous. It's only because I'm not used to being within rock throwing range. Let's have a big round of applause for our candidates before we get this. First is the Dan Commissioner. Let's have a big round of applause for Todd Staples. He is the sitting Lieutenant Governor of the state of Texas. He is David Dewhurst. I think I got that backwards. No, I didn't. He is the Land Commissioner for the state of Texas. Let's have a big round of applause for Mr. Jerry Patterson. Pardon? You know what I did? It's not that everybody's taller than you. It's just that John Corona dug a hole underneath your chair before we got Whoops. At least I thought I was playing until I said it. And then finally, State Senator Dan Patrick. Gentlemen, I have had the privilege of moderating one of these conversations before, and I personally add my applause to all of everybody else's because I am so proud that you guys have traveled the state, making sure that the voters of Texas knew who they wanted to vote for. God bless you and your efforts. I know it's hard. Congratulations on a superb campaign put on by all of you. Applaud now. I'm Chris Wallace, and welcome. Okay. This is going to be a little more conversational than normal. We're going to talk for about 2 minutes. Actually, what we'll do is we'll give each candidate a couple of minutes to be able to stick their position, but shorter if we can. And then at the end, we'll have kind of a roundtable discussion about the topic on the table. And everybody says, John David, make sure that no single person monopolizes the conversation. And I'm not having anything to do with that because all of these guys are CHL holders and I don't want to ruin my suit. So, if you would please share the microphones, I would appreciate that. Let's get busy. Let's talk a little bit about the 2/3 rule. It's a very interesting thing legislatively that essentially, I believe, gives the minority party a little bit more opportunity to affect what goes on than I think should be the case. That's me. But the 2/3 rule makes it such that a bill cannot be voted on unless 2/3 of the membership, or 2/3 of the houses, if I'm getting this right, please correct me if I get it wrong, believe that it should be in the Senate, correct? That should be, if the bill gets 2/3, then it can move on for a full vote. I think it's redundant. Let's talk to Todd Staples first. Sir, tell us what you think of the 2/3 rule and what you think ought to be done about it.
You know, for 100 years in Texas, the Texas Senate used the 2/3 rule, but what were we for 100 years in Texas? We were a one-party state. Now we are a two-party state. Fortunately, we are a strong conservative majority state. And the liberal element in the state Senate has used the 2/3 rule as a way to block conservative legislation. That's why we need to eliminate it or lower that threshold to a 60% rule. So that we do not have liberals governing the state of Texas. That's not what you work so hard for, is to pass that baton off to a group that can use it to block conservative legislation. So as Lieutenant Governor, I'll be recommending to the Senate members very strongly who will be voting on this that they need to lower that threshold to 60% or eliminate that, because I don't like special sessions. I don't know about you. Bad things happen in special sessions. We need to get your business done in the 140 days that our state constitution says we're supposed to have, and then go home and live under the laws that were passed. Also, we have another procedural thing that doesn't get talked about enough. Today, we have 18 standing committees in the state Senate. Folks, you don't have but 31 members of the Senate. We need to reduce the number of committees to a manageable number. That way conservatives can make certain that an agenda is moving through, no one is being used to thwart that, and we can get good things happening in Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Staples. Mr. Dewhurst.
The 2/3 rule is a rule of the senators. These three gentlemen, these three friends of mine, have voted repeatedly to approve the 2/3 rule. I've never voted for it. I don't have a vote as a senator. But it's a senator's rule. Over the last 8 or 9 years, we've seen the two-thirds rule work in that it brought people together up until the last two sessions, the 2009 session and the 2011 session and the 2013 session, in which this year, instead of bringing people together, and you remember the old expression, you ought to be able to compromise on an issue without compromising your core values. You can't. You shouldn't be in business, politics, or be married. All right? And so bringing people together. But I've noticed over the last two sessions, the Democrats have tried repeatedly to block our conservative agenda. And so, like Commissioner Staples, I have said publicly over and over again that if the Democrats keep trying to block the will of the majority, then we either need to lower the two-thirds number, which is 21 votes, down to 19 votes, 60%. We have 19 Republicans right now. Soon to have 20 Republicans when we win Wendy Davis's seat. And if we don't do that, then I'm for eliminating the two-thirds rule.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Patterson.
Well, I think you're going to find some unanimity up here tonight. When I was a freshman senator, I passed the Texas concealed handgun law. Governor Richard vetoed it. Came back 2 years later, and I had the same bill, although better, up for passage. And I needed 21 votes to suspend the rules so I could get a vote on the floor. Well, in order to get the 21 votes, I'm about to tell you another reason we need to get rid of the the two-thirds rule. In order to get the number of votes I needed, I had to take a bad amendment from a senator from up this way named Moncrief. And that amendment was another prohibited location on the concealed handgun possession. So I took the amendment, we passed the bill, I lived up to my word, I didn't strip the amendment out. I came back 2 years later and took the amendment out and cleaned up the bill. But my point is, not only is the two-thirds rule bad in that it prohibits good legislation from going to the floor, it also allows the leverage by the minority party to make good legislation less good, if that's good English, and I don't think it is. So I oppose the two-thirds rule. 60% rule will work. That's what I kind of concluded back in 1995 when I was trying to get the concealed handgun law passed. That's what I'll support, and I think that's kind of unanimous among all of us. We have lots of things we can do to change the rules of the Senate. Re-referral of bills is one thing. Removing committee chairs who are recalcitrant, if you will. But in order to change the rules, you have to have somebody in a leadership position who can actually sell that to 31 members of the Senate. And that's what I suggest that I'm going to be the guy who will do. I can motivate folks, I can deal with folks, I can even deal with Democrats, particularly if we have a majority. We will have a majority. And we will not quite have a supermajority, but that will come, making things much easier. But I support reducing the 67% to 60% as a workable way of moving legislation forward.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, and Mr. Patrick.
Thank you. There we go.
Thank you. Actually, there is a little bit of a difference. I heard the Lieutenant Governor say if the Democrats continue to do this. I'm not going to give them a chance to continue to do it. I'm going to try and persuade our Republican caucus on day one to change the rule. As I did when I was first elected in 2007. I campaigned in 2006 on this issue because I saw it blocking conservative ability to pass legislation that you wanted passed. So on the first day, let me tell you how it works. All the senators get back, all 31 of us in a room, and we vote on the rule. And I stood up and I voted or recommended we change it to 19. This back in 2007. 2 senators voted with me. I lost 28-3. I was told then, Senator, you're a freshman. This is your first day. When we go out on the floor, we don't vote on the floor. Everyone's unanimous. And I said, well, I'm sorry. We need to vote on this issue on the floor. We need to bring it into the spotlight so people know what this is about. I've been working on this issue for years. So I went out on the floor, and a senator came up to me and said, Senator, you're a freshman. Freshmen don't speak on the first day. And I said, well, I might be a freshman, but my constituents are not. They have every right to be heard as your constituents. I don't care how long you've been here. And so I stood on the floor, I made my case, and I lost 30-1. And so the Lieutenant Governor's wrong. I have voted against the 21 vote rule. I'm the only one running for Lieutenant Governor has been passionate on this issue. Our founding fathers, when they were designing how Congress would work, considered a two-thirds vote, and they made the decision it would give tyranny to the minority, and that's what we have had, and we saw it in spades this past session. So, I will work with the Republican caucus to persuade them. We need 16 votes. There are 31 senators. We need 16. We're going to have 20, as you heard. We'll win the Wendy Davis seat. I need 16 out of 20 Republicans. Guess what? I lost 30 to 1 back then. This last session, I had 10 votes. I've never stopped on this issue. So I have been not just talking about it in this campaign, I've been fighting for it for 4 sessions. It is key to passing our conservative agenda, and we'll also talk about the Democrat chairs, because I'm not going to appoint half the Democrat chairs to be chairman of, half of the Democrat senators to be chairman of committees. That's going to end on day 1 as well. Thank you.
More about that a little bit later on in our discussion, but let's talk a little bit about getting rid of the rule entirely. What are the committees doing if not deciding what bills should move forward and which should stay? Anyone can pick up the microphone and please answer that question. Why not just get rid of the entire concept and let the committees actually make those decisions?
Well, I think there's a lot of merit to that. At the end of the day, this is a senator's rule. The lieutenant governor can obviously weigh in. I have weighed in repeatedly by saying that this practice by the Democrats has to stop. It is not in the best interest, because we have to go into special session. When we go into special session, then we pass all the bills that got tied up by the Democrats, because I have historically never recognized the two-thirds rule in a special session. And by doing that, I've been able to pass in special session rules like 12, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 redistricting bills, which we couldn't pass in a regular session. I've been able to pass TSA anti-groping bill. I've been able to pass anti-sanctuary cities. I've been able to pass a different photo voter ID. So by going into special session, that's by a majority, 16 votes only. And if we believe that our constitutional rights and the will of the majority is going to be thwarted by the two-thirds rule, then that's where we need to get up.
Anyone else?
Yes, we already know our rights have been thwarted by the minority. We need to have conservative leadership that works as hard on our agenda as the liberals work as hard on their agenda. They take no prisoners. And we want to work with the other side, as I did as education chair this session, passing sweeping reform bills unanimously. So I'm able to work with the other side of the aisle, but when it comes to our core conservative principles and values, they are not going to yield. They will not negotiate. So from day 1, it is a senator's rule, but I will work to persuade those senators to change that rule. It is crucial that we change that rule so we can secure the border, pass school choice, reduce your property taxes, fund transportation properly, and the whole list of conservative bills that we have not been able to pass. We should not have to go to special session to do it. It costs you millions of dollars in tax money.
Commissioner. Well, John, to directly answer your question, I don't think the committees can be the ones deciding which bills go to the floor, because you as voters elect the lieutenant governor to be a leader. You elect the lieutenant governor to be someone that's going to make certain that the agenda of Texas is accomplished. And that's why you need a lieutenant governor that, before the first gavel ever falls, helps establish the priorities of our state. The office of lieutenant governor is not a golden microphone. It's not a stage. The office of lieutenant governor is a working pit where you get the people's business done, focusing on our inadequate transportation system that has been told and bonded here these last decade, that does address our basic education needs, that makes certain that our communities are focused on delivering water solutions for a growing Texas. We have 26 million people today. That number is going to double. So you need a lieutenant governor that's going to make certain that the fundamental business of Texas is accomplished. And that's why conservatives are the ones that elect that lieutenant governor.
Commissioner Patterson.
I just think,
Kill the microphone. Try that.
Yeah, well, I want to say one thing we do not want to do, and we've got a lot of good ideas up here, but the thing we do not want to do is replicate what occurs in the Texas House of Representatives, where we have a calendars committee that never meets in public, and they take those bills that come out of the various committees in the House, and then they determine secretly which ones get to the floor for a vote. So the thing we do not want is a calendars committee. 60% rule is good. Leadership is even better. Just one quick closing comment on this subject. I was in the Senate from 1993 to 1999. We had a crusty old Democrat in charge. His name was Bullock. Bullock, if he had wanted to change the two-thirds rule, would have changed the two-thirds rule. He would have had the leadership, maybe the leverage to get the votes needed. I want to be that kind of lieutenant governor. I will have the leadership and I will have the leverage. I'm a 24-year Marine. I know how to lead and I know how to convince people what's the right thing to do.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. One of the most divisive topics in the state of Texas and pretty much everywhere in the United States is our border and immigration. It has fallen to politicians of virtually every stripe to make a decision about this, and no one has had either the political courage or the willingness to do whatever is necessary to be able to make a deal so that our borders are secure. The Constitution asks of the federal government only three things: run a post office, also defend the country and protect the borders. Well, that's two-thirds of the job going unanswered. Is Texas going to step up and do something about that, at least to protect our own interests, the borders and immigration? And we'll start with Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst.
The answer is yes and yes. For the first 4 or 5 years that I was lieutenant governor, I could see clearly that our borders were not being adequately defended. The federal government was doing a failure of a job to secure our southern border, our northern border, our border between Canada and Alaska, and all of our ports of entry. I lobbied the Republicans, talked to some of the Democrats in our congressional delegation to triple the size of the Border Patrol. We got 19,000 Border Patrol agents in total for all those borders. You know how many police officers with guns there are in New York City? Almost 48,000. What's wrong with this picture? Is New York more important than the rest of the country? New York thinks so. And so, starting in 2008, I made up my mind that we had to lead and show the federal government how to secure our borders. We started in 2008, 5 years ago. Over the last 5 years, we've appropriated, bear with me until I finish my next sentence, we've appropriated $800 million of your Texas tax dollars in buying high-altitude spotter aircraft with X-ray, with infrared to see at night, helicopters to go up and down the border to be able to see at night. We've put Texas Ranger SWAT teams in the brush to interdict people involved in human trafficking, illegal immigration, drugs coming in, and we have purchased 6 new armor-plated gunboats to go on the Rio Grande. As part of this exercise, to know if we can secure the border, we ran an operation called Operation Strong Safety. And it began on September 15th through October 7th or 8th. And we demonstrated empirically that through a surge operation, it cost us a little over $3 million, we can shut down the border from the Gulf of Mexico and Brownsville all the way to Laredo. That's why I proposed, as the leader of the Senate, that we would extend this and run it 24/7, close down our entire border, the 1,200 miles that we share with Mexico, and send the bill to Barack Obama.
Commissioner Patterson.
It's actually 3 issues: border security, assimilation, and immigration reform. They all go hand in hand. Number 1, let's stop the magnet. Now, that's a federal issue to stop the magnet, but the primary magnet is the 14th Amendment birthright citizenship provision. That was implemented after the end of the War on Point of State regarding slavery to ensure that all those who were born here are citizens. It was not meant to be a methodology where you could come across the border, have a child, and that child would get automatic U.S. citizenship. In unconditional birthright citizenship. Number 2, we need to stop some of the other things. Assimilation, I mentioned that. Have you ever wondered why we have bilingual ballots? I mean, you know what my name is on the Spanish language ballot? It's Jerry Patterson. How hard can this be? I'm just saying, we continue to dumb down what it needs to, what you need to do to become a participating, productive American citizen. Would you imagine that any other country would do what we do? Some call it welcoming. I say no. It's essentially a balkanization of the United States. It's what you see in Eastern Europe. We need to unite together as one culture, one state, one America. It's wonderful if you're bilingual. It's wonderful if you keep your family heritage, whether it's Polish or Tejano or whatever it may be. The other thing we need to do is border security. Part and parcel with border security is a guest worker program. Now I want to tell you something, maybe you don't know. All four of us gentlemen up here have at one time or another said that we do not believe and do not support that we believe that we can deport 12 million illegal aliens. All of us at one time or another have said we support a guest worker program. I'm telling you, we are doing the wrong thing if our border patrol is chasing the kid that works in the kitchen at the local restaurant instead of chasing coyotes, narco traffickers, and criminals. We need to prioritize. We need to establish a defensive perimeter. I know how to do that. And there's a lot more. I would ask you to go to immigration on my votepatterson.com website, and you'll see a lot more detailed information, not cliches and bumper stickers.
Senator Patrick.
When I first arrived in the Senate in 2007, I wasn't on finance. I've been on finance the last two sessions. And we were given the budget. And I asked the question, where's the money for border security? There was no money in the budget. And I stood up, and two other senators stood up. I ended up voting against the budget anyway. I thought it was too much spending. But I said, I'm not even going to consider supporting this budget. So we're in a campaign now, and in a campaign, everyone starts to begin to say what they think you want to hear. What you have to do is look at my 16,000 vote record, look at the voting records of everyone. Lieutenant Governor doesn't have all, but you can look at what happened on his watch. And so, as he said, in 2008, how about the first 6 years what's happened to secure our border? Do you know that from 2006 to 2012, we apprehended 1,134,000 people crossing our border? We think we get 1 out of 5, that means 5 million got through. 2006 to 2012. From 2008 to 2012, we arrested and put in our jails in Texas 141,000 hardened criminals who we identified as being here illegally. We charged them with 447,000 crimes, including 2,000 murders and 5,000 rapes. Just this year, or last year in September, in 1 week, we apprehended 6,000 people crossing our border. 1 week! And a third of those were OTMs, other than Mexican, including people from the Middle East, people from China. You need a lieutenant governor who has been focused on this issue since day one. I authored the End Sanctuary Cities. Brian Birdwell and I tried to repeal in-state tuition. And while I guest worker program, I like Jerry, but I don't want him speaking for me. There may be a difference. I don't want a guest worker program until we secure the border. Any nation, as my friend John Hagee says, that does not use its freedom to defend its freedom will lose its freedom. I'm going to be an action lieutenant governor and not going to say 8 years from now, I started working on that 5 years ago. Day one, priority number one. Our job is to protect your life, your family, and your property. We'll do it.
Commissioner Patterson, the senator did speak to you directly. You've got about 15, 20 seconds.
Well, I'm sorry.
You're better at this. Are you in radio? Dan said he made a distinction between our positions. But here's the problem with the simple rhetoric that says, not until we secure our border do we have a guest worker program. Or not until every American is employed do we have a guest worker program. If you admit, as all four of us have done, that it is virtually impossible, nor do you want to live in a police state that has that much police power to round up and deport 12 million people. If you admit that, which we all have, and you have no plan to do anything with those that are here, that is de facto amnesty. You have to have a plan that addresses all three stools.
Commissioner Staples, we'll get to the rest of that conversation again. Sorry to interrupt, sir. Go ahead.
You know, when it comes to immigration reform and border security, I think everybody in America should acknowledge politicians from both parties have let us down. And they're not listening to what we're saying about this most critical issue. The reason you just don't go fix a guest worker program is because without securing the border, what happens? People continue to flood across our border. And that's why I have developed a 6-point plan to reform our failed immigration system that starts with border security and does not include amnesty. I didn't just start on this issue because I'm running for lieutenant governor. I've been working on this as Commissioner of Agriculture over 3 years ago when landowners reached out to me who are being chased off their property by violent and treacherous drug cartel members. I went to Washington and said, we need more resources along our border. It is a Texas problem, but it's a U.S. responsibility. And the president came to El Paso and said, the border is safer than ever. Don't you like that? And he said, you keep your health care plan if you like it. This is a very serious issue. Texas has 2/3 of our entire southern border. We have the second highest population of undocumented immigrants. If Washington won't act, Texas needs to step up and to do this. That's why I created a website called Protect Your Texas Border and put farmers and ranchers on there telling the stories of being chased off their property. I retained the services of 2 retired generals. One was an appointee of Clinton. The other is an analyst for Fox News, Bob Scale, that did a joint strategic military assessment of the border. I didn't want people calling it the way we wanted to. I wanted to call it balls and strikes. We carried them to Washington. They were attacked in a congressional subcommittee for calling it and telling it like it is. Texas needs to lead, and we can do that. I hope we have some more time to talk about this.
As a matter of fact, we have a little bit of a conversation. We're going to spend a couple more minutes talking about this because obviously the candidates have more to say. Lieutenant Governor.
Well, I agree with what Commissioner Staples just got through saying, and Commissioner Patterson.
Sorry.
And
Doing my Kenny Crowley moment.
Thank you.
I'm so really sorry.
But let me just point out that this is, and these are all 3 friends of mine. But this is a distinction between being lieutenant governor and wanting to be lieutenant governor. I just got through sharing with you what we've done over the last 5 years. We have invested, we've got the assets in place. We've already done the surge operation, and I've already spoken with the governor and the speaker to do it this year, not next year, this year, right now, 24/7.
Who is next? Okay.
You know, there is a difference between being lieutenant governor, and I'm going to tell you the reality here. I appreciate what's been done, but Governor Dewhurst, you said this morning in Austin that we're on the verge of securing the border. That's just an out-of-touch statement, ladies and gentlemen. Half of the people that are coming across our border now are not from Mexico. Over half of them are from countries other than Mexico. Yeah. We have a tragic situation. This last session of the legislature would have been a prime time to work on border security. But David, you waited till 2 weeks after you filed for re-election and held a press conference and said, I want to put $60 million more in border security, when we should have done that during the regular legislative session. These are real issues. And these are issues of leadership and about how to solve these problems. And we need to be talking about those tonight.
Mr. Patterson.
Well, you know, we've all got something to say about it. But I have to tell you, this is a very, very complicated issue. And it's evolved over many, many, many years. You know, we had a good system at one time. We had a adversarial system at one time that the Democrats got rid of in the mid-'60s because it was anti-labor, or so they thought. But when Todd says that he has a 6-point plan to deal with the immigration problem, I can't find it. It was very difficult, but I did find it. It's 6 points. It's a total of 24 words. One of the points is secure our borders. The other one is enforce our laws. I don't remember the others, but there needs to be a little fleshing out. What I would suggest to you is you go to my website, and if you have trouble sleeping at night, I've got a very long narrative there, but it's much more detailed, much more specific, and it actually has substance to it. Not cliches, not contradictory, and not slogan.
Be quick.
Jerry, this is the point where you usually say you spent 5.5 years to squeeze a 4-year program in A&M, and it shows here right now. I just want you to know. Because it is a very detailed plan. I've actually written a book about it called Broken Borders, Broken Promises. I'll be glad to give you a copy of it. Obviously, you didn't see it. Just real quickly, because he was very critical of this. This 6-point plan, by the way, I took this to the national level and worked with other states on how we can reform this. And obviously, we need to get you some tutorial assistance. Be glad to do that for you. I want to text Andy as well so I can pick on this fellow acting.
Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst, you're next. No, you're next? Well, okay, all right. Go ahead.
I'm not going to get in the middle of the Jerry and the Todd. I will tell you this, to set the record straight. Todd does have a 6-point plan, and he does have a book. But in his book, he failed to tell voters that he voted to give, in 2001, in-state tuition to illegals. Todd voted to give driver's license to illegals in 2001. And in 2003, he voted to give them free health care. So you talk about a campaign conversion. The best record of what you will do in the future is what you've done in the past. I'm the only one up here who actually tried to repeal in-state tuition and tried to end sanctuary cities. We did pass that. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate that in the one special session. And back in Harris County, where I'm from, and Jerry originally was a senator, there's a big battle going on with some people who are against me because I'm too tough on the border and the border security, and that Jerry has the right answer because he wants everyone to come through. That's the battle that's going on in Harris County. So there is a difference. I'm just telling you, there is a difference. There's a difference. And the difference is, as Lieutenant Governor or Todd said, until we secure the border first, we'll never correct any other issue because they will continue to tell us until the border is secured, you're not serious. As Lieutenant Governor, I've been serious for 4 years, I'll be serious.
Lieutenant Governor Churcher, and I won't take, no, that's fine, that's all right. And the baton is
Okay, the quote was, from my friend to my left, I might add. The quote was, okay, well, the quote was, I want everyone to come through. Now, I would like to ask Dan at a later time some backup. Let me just tell you something. We're all talking about leadership. We're talking about bravery. We're talking about being straight with people. And how many people were at the convention, or the State Republican Convention, June 2012 in Fort Worth? All right? Whether you agree with me or not, was there only one politician who had these, if we're talking in Spanish here, cojones, to stand up and say what we need to do about our border security and immigration? The Texas solution, Friday night, was debated for an hour and a half, and it passed by an overwhelming majority. If you go to our website, the video of the entire discussion is on there. It takes leadership. There is a detailed plan in the Republican Party of Texas platform called the Texas Solution. It talks about birthright citizenship. It talks about a biometric ID card. It talks about taxing and identifying and fining all these people that are here illegally and making them in the guest worker program, because if you do not do that, it's de facto amnesty. If you don't address the 12 million people here like the Republican Party of Texas platform does, you're an advocate of de facto amnesty.
very quickly, sir, if you don't mind.
Very quickly. I have always been an opponent of a pathway to citizenship because that's amnesty. I don't think it's fair, and at the end of the day, that's why in the 2005 session I worked to reduce the cost of the bill that had been passed in 2001 granting in-state tuition to people that are here illegally. That was before I came into the Senate, but it passed overwhelmingly. But at least I was able to reduce the cost for those that are here on student visas.
All right, that was rousing. Nice conversation. One more time, go right ahead. No, it's okay. It's all right, never get in the way of an hanky.
Hey, they had just made some allegations that are just simply not true about those bills. And, you know, if you're going to talk about it, you ought to tell the truth. In 2001, I was ranked the most conservative member of the Senate. I believe it was by the Heritage Alliance when he's talking about those bills occurring. 2001, Dan, you weren't even an elected official. You still had unpaid tax returns for the state of Texas. So if you want to talk about what happened over a decade ago, I think we should. If you want to talk about that, I'm happy to. And I want to make one statement on the in-state tuition bill, because liberals and Democrats across the nation are trying to use this to target Hispanics to get them to vote for Democrats and not Republicans. And the reason that we have said that in-state tuition should be repealed is because that was based upon those students correcting their stats. It has not been enforced. Our federal government hasn't done its job. And that's the way it needs to be repealed for that reason. And we can secure our border, get things fixed, and then move forward.
I'm not even going to respond to the one. When you start personally attacking, you lost the political argument. Here's the truth. Not just it's a yes or no. Did you vote for in-state tuition? Did you vote to give driver's license to illegals? And did you vote in 2003 to give free health care?
No, Dan, you don't have to debate about that. Because when you ask.
Yes.
When you ask to take care of people's finances, it's important that you take care of your own. So if you don't respond to those things, those are relevant and tangible things, I believe, in a Republican primary. And you haven't read the bills, or you're using talking points. So if you read the bills, you know that's not the case on that.
I don't really want to get in an argument, folks. I want to talk about issues, but you can go to the record and look it up. And I think Jerry's looked it up. And he voted for those three bills. You're saying you didn't vote for those three bills. That's a real problem. Because you voted for them all three.
Dan, that's not what I said. You're trying to put spin on things, and if you're going to talk about issues, you really need to know what you're talking about. You need to give a fair representation of who you are and what you stand for, and that's what I've done my entire career.
You know that the conversation is degenerated when a Marine is going to step in and try to calm things down.
You know, I have to be honest with you. I didn't vote for the three things that Todd voted for. But to be fair, I wasn't in the Senate at that time. But let me also tell you that there have been things that I voted for that I wish I hadn't. And when later somebody confronts me with it and I look at it and I say that was a bad vote, I say, that was a bad vote. It's really kind of liberating to just say you did something wrong, that you voted the wrong way, and not deny it. But to further compound things, Todd told me I needed a copy of his book. In his book, he refers to the in-state tuition bill as passing unanimously. It didn't. It had, how many? Three nay votes. Just say you made a mistake. It's really simple. It's part of leadership. It's part of maintaining the respect of those who seek to lead. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'll make some more.
You made a mistake. If you get a copy of the book, I encourage you to all go buy a copy of Broken Borders, Broken Promises, by the way. All net proceeds are going to cause us to secure our border and reform our failed immigration system.
Would you like to play a little Rochambeau? Or, Here we go. All right, we're going to move on. By the way, for the members of the assembled media, the Cahone's reference was exactly 40 minutes and 5 seconds into the conversation. They gave me a stopwatch. I have to do something. Okay, here we go. You ready? Thank you very much. Okay. Everybody cleansing breath. Let's talk about the state budget. State budget's been in pretty darn good shape for the time that I've been in Texas. I don't know about you guys, but I have watched this budget move very beautifully through the last 7 years or so since I've been here. The only real argument that I've ever had about the state budget is that I thought there was too much money in the rainy day fund, because I thought that was our money and we ought to have it back. That was my thought. Now let's hear about your thoughts on the budget, the way it is, how you feel it should be improved, and so on. And Commissioner Patterson, you get to start this time.
Well, the current biennium, we are projected and budgeted to spend about $197 billion. 75% of that, equal halves, 37.5% goes to health care, primarily Medicaid. 37.5% goes to public and higher ed. That's 75%. After that, there's 10% for transportation and then 15% for everything else. When I was in the legislature the first time, which is 20 years ago, I think our budget was like 80-some or 89 billion. Now, that's not necessarily an apples-to-apples comparison, but the problem with the budgeting process is that it is unbelievably cumbersome, and it's unbelievably hard to understand, and we're spending a little too much money. Now, I never served on finance, I was never in the House, I was never on House Appropriations, but our tax system is broken, too much reliance on property taxes. We have a margins tax that has always been predicted to underperform, and it's living up to expectations. We have to do a prioritization. I would almost suggest a variation of zero-based budgeting, where you figure out, you don't know how much money you got, but you allocate by percentage how much you want to allocate to various needs in the state budget. And then you figure out how much money you got, not depending on our current comptroller's revenue estimates, I might add, and then you spend it accordingly. You prioritize according to need. All too often, the most needy element of the Texas budget is the thing you fight over at the very end of the session. Those things that are priorities need to be funded first. And then if we have money left over, we give it back to the taxpayers, or we don't spend it at all on the budget. So there needs to be a budgeting process revision.
Senator Patrick.
I've had the privilege, and I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor appointing me to finance the last 2 sessions. In 2007, I voted against the budget, thought it was too much spending. There were 3 or 4 of us, I can't remember exactly now. 2009, I did pass a tax cut for $172 million for small businesses with revenues under $1 billion, and I did vote for the budget. In 2011, I voted for the budget because we cut $15 billion because we had to. And this past session, I was one of 4 senators, Ken Paxton, Brian Birdwell, Don Campbell, who voted against the budget. There are a number of issues, and those can be debated back and forth. But one of the things that really concerned me about this budget last time, folks, there was a bill that's not talked about very often. It was House Bill 1025. And House Bill 1025 was designed to give Democrats $500 million, basically in cash, one-time payment, to get their votes. But we have something called the System Benefit Fund. You pay on your utility bill, and it was to go to the poor. The poor hadn't been accessing it. It built up $860 million. And we had a plan originally that was just going to refund $100 to everyone who has an electric meter at their home. That was the fairest way to do it, run their business. And at the last moment over in the House, the Democrats said, we're not going to vote for the budget. We want that money not spread out to every taxpayer in the state of Texas, but we want all $500 million for our constituents. There were some brave members of the House who voted against it, but it passed and came back. If I had been Lieutenant Governor, hell would have frozen over before I'd let the Democrats push us into a corner to get their votes. So we have a lot of issues we have to address in finance. We simply spend too much money, but where we need to spend it, we need to have a laser beam focus, transparency, and efficiency. And I bet most of you in here didn't even know that House Bill 1025, and I hope I have that number right, I think I do, gave $500 million of their hard-earned money to Democrats to buy their votes for a budget, by the way, this session. I just want you to, here's how I sum this whole issue up this session, this budget. Every Democrat voted for it, and most of them praised it. When you have every Democrat in the House and Senate vote for a budget, I can guarantee you it's not a conservative budget. They won't be voting for my budgets, I don't think. We'll get enough votes to pass it, but we'll never get down on our knees and say, oh, we need your vote, what will it take to get it?
Commissioner Staples.
And I believe the question was about the rainy day fund in terms of budgeting.
It was just the budget in general.
Yeah.
You know, I was just bringing up the rainy day fund as a multi-billion-dollar affair that belongs to the people.
How many of you have a savings account at home for unforeseen, unexpected items? I do too, we do. The rainy day fund is that state's unexpected items, hurricanes, tornadoes, catastrophes. And so that's why the state has a rainy day fund. Now, we need to make certain that in using that rainy day fund as part of the budgeting process, that you don't use it for reoccurring expenses, because if you use one-time money that you have to pay for reoccurring expenses, what happens? Detroit. Bad news, bad planning, bad policy. I know this last session, the Senate advocated, and I believe Governor Dewhurst maybe can speak to that, advocated spending $6 billion out of that rainy day fund for ongoing expenses. Senator Patrick voted for that, to spend it for ongoing expenses. I don't think we should do that. When it comes to budgeting, I believe we do need a zero-based budgeting process that makes certain we have to build it up from the ground up. As Commissioner of Agriculture, I have a budget, and because we have required our divisions to use that process, we've given over $50 million back to you, the taxpayer, by coming in under budget, and I believe that's the way that we need to do our state budget. We also need to look at this. Obviously, we need roads. Certainly, we want our tax dollars going into the classroom and impacting our children's lives and not spent foolishly. So the way that you deal with these budget problems and budget issues that we have is not to look at taxation, but look for government to limit spending, to cut waste, and to bring efficiencies. In order to have budget savings, I work with the legislature to abolish agencies, move those remaining functions to the Department of Agriculture. We deliver them at lower cost and with fewer number of employees. That's the way you run your businesses. That's the way you run your homes. That's what you should expect from us as a legislator.
Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst.
Ladies and gentlemen, my wife Tricia is always telling me, David, if you give me one more number, I'm going to hit you. that numbers will paint a picture. And let me keep it real short. This year, and I agree with Dan, this year in the 2013 budget for the next 2 years, 14 and 15, I thought our budget was more than we needed to. And I talked to the governor, I talked to our chairman about reducing that. But our budget is still under inflation and population growth. When you talk about leadership, when I came in, we were facing a shortfall in 2003. And so I cut out of the budget some and you were there, we cut, you were on Senate Finance, I was on Senate Finance, we cut about $3 billion out of spending. And over the years, we cut billions of dollars. In 2011, we had cut $14 billion out of our budget. Also, frequently, we've started the year by zero-based budgeting so that every single agency had to substantiate every penny that we're putting into the budget. So if you look from the first day that I walked into the Senate in January 2011 through today, our budget has remained 11% below inflation population growth. One of my problems, one of my concerns is I wanted to put that practice, good practice, in the law. And I was frustrated that, and now we're getting back to the two-thirds, that the Democrats blocked it. And so that's why I put it on a special list to pass it in special session, but the governor didn't put it on the call in a special section. The governor has to put it on the call. Long story short, what your legislature has done for you over the last few years is keep our spending below inflation and population growth. What we've done is cut your taxes 54 times. 54 times, individuals and businesses, for almost $16 billion. What we've done is cut your local school property taxes by $7 billion. And that represents about 60% of your total property tax bill. And what we've done in all these, Todd played a role, the Senator Patrick has played a role, and we've also funded, over the last 5 years, a buildup, a massive buildup to give us the muscle and the resources to be able to close down our southern border. And we have eliminated or shuttered 57 state agencies.
Commissioner Patterson. Did you start?
I think so.
Did you start?
I thought that was a blank question you gave me.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else that you wanted to say about this particular issue? Were there any other additional comments? Let's move on. Thank you very much. This one starts with Senator Patrick. Senator Patrick, what about committee chairs that involve Democrats? I've never understood this. This is something that's always amazed me, that the majority party will actually give away committee chairmanships. Why is that? Maybe you can help us out with that.
You know, on the very first debate that we had back in September, I said that as Lieutenant Governor, I would not appoint half of the Democrats to chairman of the committee. We had 12 Democrats last session. 6 were chairman of the committee. It's too much power, not just for that committee, but how they use that power to get their stinky bills passed. As chairman of education this past session, and I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor giving me that responsibility, I had total control of that committee. I decide with my staff, as every chairman does, what bills are considered, what bills are heard, what bills come out. So what a Democrat chairman does of a committee is not just have the power of that committee to stop a Republican from passing a really good conservative bill, but what he does is, might say to the Republican senator, you know, I've got a bill out on the floor, I'm trying to get that 21st vote for it. You know, you want to get a hearing on your bill. You know how it works. I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor's public service. I honestly do. We work on some things good together. I'm not running against him. I would just do things totally differently. And quite frankly, and you know, will there be none? Will there be 1 or 2? We'll see what the deck is stacked up when we get back there. But I can tell you this, that after the anarchists took over, which should not have happened, it was a weakness of leadership, the filibuster, and created Wendy Davis to be a rock star. It puts a target on our back bigger than it should have been. After I saw Democrat senators on the floor inciting the crowd, I believe they forfeited their right to be chairman, quite frankly. When you bring anarchy to the Senate, to the floor, to your house, the people's house of government, then it's time to say there's a price to pay for that. And so, not only should we have Democrat chairs, half of them, chair of the committee, I think it's, and I don't care if the media quotes me on this, I think there has to be some repercussions to the bad behavior that night. And so as your lieutenant governor, I'm going to lead as a conservative. I'm an action guy. All these issues we've talked about tonight, I've been fighting for 4 sessions, 16,000 votes, and that's 6 out of 16, 1 day out of 650. I show up to work. I will lead, as Jerry said, as Bob Bullock was as a Democrat, I will lead as a Republican and get the job done that you want us to get done. Thank you.
Commissioner Staples.
You know, no conservative in Texas wants to yield our responsibility to move this state forward to any liberal element in this state. And it cannot happen that way. And I think you're expecting a lieutenant governor that's a no excuses lieutenant governor that comes and stands before you and talks about the good legislation that's been passed. And that's the kind of lieutenant governor I want to be. Now, will there be fewer Democrats if I'm lieutenant governor under the existing rules? Absolutely. And I'll remind you what I said earlier. We have 18 standing committees today, folks, in the state Senate, with only 31 members. That's not leadership. That's just saying I can't make a decision, so I'll appoint everyone. I think we need a process that tightens that up, that makes certain that the bills that are going through committees, you can track it more easily. It can't be hidden in a committee somewhere. And I think that's what your expectation is as a state and as we fight for sound policies that move our state forward. And it will happen if you send the right person to serve as Lieutenant Governor. I'm asking for your support tonight.
Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst.
You know, you're right, guys. You're all mad at me because I wore my blue suit on the day that, and you really wanted me to wear my brown suit, all right? What we're talking about is pure nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a lifelong career businessman. I'm all about results. I'm all about what the scoreboard is. When we talk about things such as the pro-life bill that we passed this summer, let's look at the scoreboard, all right? Wendy Davis, 0, all right? Protecting women's health and protecting the unborn, 1, all right? 1-0. And that 1, you can spell it 2 ways, O-N-E and W-O-N. Now, I must be the only one up here that's not particularly concerned about Wendy Davis. Regette's not concerned about her. He's going to beat her really badly. And she's going to go back and practice law, who knows where, maybe in Washington with the Obama administration for a year or 2. All right? Now, and you know what's going to happen? Best thing that could possibly happen is going to happen. We're going to get a good conservative Republican to represent that district. That's going to do more for us conservative Republicans than I can think of. And so I'm very, very pleased that that at the end of the day we were able to come together. We brought the bill up. Yeah, there was a real mob scene. The senators didn't want to end their right to filibuster. They didn't want to end their right to filibuster, so they asked me to break the filibuster. Senator Patrick actually helped in that. We broke it about 11 hours into it, and then the food fight started. We come back a week and a half later and pass it, all right? We passed the bill. That's why all 4 of the largest pro-life organizations have endorsed me, because prior to my coming in as Lieutenant Governor, we passed 1 pro-life bill in the history of the state. We passed about 8 or 9 since.
And Commissioner Patterson.
What was the question?
We were talking a little bit. We were talking about the committee chairs being Democrats.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. You want to give it another shot at that? Just kidding. Just kidding. It's my shot. It's a matter of leadership. It's a matter of leadership that starts from day one. And I have to agree with Dan. I'm going to go look at the tape. And I'm going to look at all those senators that were rabble-rousing and encouraging the crowd up there to stand up and throw things and scream and holler. And I guarantee you, not one of those senators is going to be a committee chair in the next legislative session when I'm governor. I will also tell you that, candidly, we tend to try to simple things down, dumb things down up here a little bit. I mean, we're politicians, and we use this thing about the number of Democrat committee chairs. I agree with Dan. There's going to be fewer, because there's going to be more Republican senators, for one thing. But regardless of who's elected, there's going to be Democrat committee chairs. Maybe 1, maybe 2, I don't know.
Because if you did not do that, you'd blow the thing up on day one and it would never get the legislature to pass that you wanted to pass. But there's going to be less. Okay, we kind of all agree on that. But I want to go into something else. When you look at what happened, because we morphed from committee chairs to the Sonny Dye debacle, and I will tell you that when you open your icebox and you look in there and you look at your milk, there's a date on it. It's called a shelf life. Every politician has a shelf life. I mean, I could be land commissioner for 40 years, nobody know we have a general land office, much else know who I am. But there's a certain shelf life with those in high executive office, such as governor or lieutenant governor. And with all due respect, and I have to commend the governor for the leadership on some of the things he pointed out now about balancing the budget in hard times, with all due respect, our current chair has reached the shelf life. There's nothing wrong with that. It's apparent, it's endemic, it's part of what happens when you're elected to a high-profile office. Just by change, leadership can and will occur that otherwise would not. And one final thought about all of us up here that are seeking an office and all those out there that are seeking an office, some of you running for the legislature, if you're elected to the legislature or anything in Austin, I want you to do one thing. Go over to the Capitol late at night after everybody's gone. Walk every floor. Look at all the pictures on the walls of folks who at some time thought they were somebody. But today, nobody knows who the hell they are. We will not be remembered. Jerry Patterson, Dan Patrick, David Dewhurst, Todd Staples, by name, will be remembered by what we do or fail to do. And I've got things I want to do, and I hope you'll give me the chance.
And now we're at the point of the program where we have 2 minutes for closing statements. Thank goodness for that piece of paper. To start things off, let's start with Commissioner Todd Staples.
Folks, I've had fun here tonight. I don't know about you. But thanks for coming out. I didn't tell you when I started out that I have 3 very strong, powerful Republican women that are out campaigning for me, going all over the state, that are here with me tonight. It's my wife, my daughter, and my mother. So I'm certainly glad that y'all are here tonight. You know, elections are about choices. They're about choosing who you want to fight for your values, your ideas. And really, elections are about choosing leaders that you can trust and who will tell you the truth on these issues. Dan brought an issue up about a vote in 2001, and I'll tell you why he's not telling the truth. It's not the driver's license thing. People that were here illegally, they were already getting driver's licenses before that bill ever came up. That's the truth of it, plain and simple. So you want people that won't put their spin on it, but will just call balls and strikes. That's what I want in people when I elect them in office, that will stand up. And I'll tell you something else. As conservatives, I think you deserve to know who we are and what we stand for. That's why I have developed a contract with Texans that puts in writing what I want to accomplish as your next lieutenant governor. And I've signed my name on the bottom line. It's on my website at toddstaples.com. I hope you'll go to that website and look at my contract with Texans, because it outlines what my priorities will be. I have been endorsed by a very conservative group of landowners in South Texas because of my strong border security and immigration reform stance. That will be number 1. Number 2 is going to be focused on jobs and the economy, because low taxes, fair regulations, and honest courts will move Texas forward. The third thing that I'm going to be focused on is education, because we need a strong education system that is both accountable and a quality system, and we oppose things like C-Scope that seeks to insert unpatriotic ideas into our children's minds. And as Lieutenant Governor, the 4th thing, you will have a Lieutenant Governor that will fight for Texas values and against an intrusive federal government resisting things like Obamacare and the Environmental Protection Agency. ToddStaples.com. I'd be honored to have your support in this race. Thanks so much. Good to be here with you tonight.
Next up, Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you all for being here this evening. And I wasn't responsive to the previous question. Let me just quickly say, the greatest protection we have is the fact that we have a strong Republican majority on every single committee. And until such time, and these gentlemen have all voted for the 2/3 rule, they changed that rule. Do the math in your own head, all right? We need 21 votes, and we have 19 Republicans. So we need to reach out to a few. Maybe not 6, maybe not 5, maybe not 4, but we need to reach out. Now, I'm running for re-election, ladies and gentlemen, for one big reason. Texas is doing well. Texas is doing well. And that's why we've got 1,200 people a day coming into the state. That's why our population over the next 50 years is going to go from 26 million people to 50 million people. So I'm running for re-election because I'm a career businessman. I've shown that I know how to grow economies in good financial times and bad financial times. I've shown repeatedly that I know how to go in and tighten the belt on organizations. When I went into Jerry's organization, the land office, day one, I fired 16% of the workforce and I eliminated almost 20% of the budget. I've repeatedly cut spending. I've kept the reason why Texas has a AAA rating, and the reason why I run it is to keep Texas strong and to make sure there's opportunity for not only us but our children. At the end of the day, I want to focus on Texans moving this state forward and keeping Texas number one in opportunity, number one, the most conservative state in the country, fiscally and socially, and protect all of our freedoms. That's why I'm running.
Land Commissioner Jerry Patterson.
Everybody stop voting. I haven't closed yet. I mean, it's disrespectful, I think. I'm going to make you a promise. I'm always going to be straight with you. I'm not going to change my tune from audience to audience. I'm not going to say I didn't vote for that bill when I did. If it's a bad bill, I'm going to say, well, you know, I was wrong. Or I'm going to defend the vote if I think it was not a bad vote. You're going to see the same Jerry Patterson, whether it's in South Texas, the Panhandle, or here in Denton County. I'm a retired Marine Vietnam veteran. I'm an Aggie. I'm the author of the Concealed Handgun Law, and I'm very proud to say my son is a Marine as well. He's the 5th consecutive generation of our family with wartime overseas service. I have been endorsed by, of the 62 state Republican Executive Committee members, I have more endorsements than all the other gentlemen combined. Last week I was endorsed by the Liberty guy in the United States, Ron Paul. Shortly after that I was endorsed by Dick Armey, the former congressman representing Denton County. Today I was endorsed by Tom Hawken. But the most important endorsement is the one that you're going to give me on the 4th of March or before. Maybe even tonight on that yellow sheet of paper. You can get them back if you wish. That's the endorsement I seek. I seek your license. I seek your approval to go to Austin and do what I can do better than anyone else with all due respect. I'll be straight with you. I want to be your lieutenant governor. Let me just close by one more thing. You know, politicians are not really all that important. Texans are what's important. But you put all this importance in us, and we need to live up to certain standards. I'll do that. I would ask you for your vote. Please go to votepatterson.com. Keep in mind if you want somebody you can agree with on every single issue, you need to run. God bless you and God bless you.
And State Senator Dan Patrick.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you all for coming tonight. This has become almost like a second home for me. I've been up here so often. You all have been so kind to me. I appreciate the endorsement of the Pat Fallon. He's been terrific for me. We have over 400 grassroots leaders, Tea Party leaders all across the state who have endorsed our campaign because they've looked at the record, 16,000 votes, A-rate year after year on being a fiscal conservative, someone who's passed the sonogram, who put in God we trust in the Senate, under God in our state pledge. I'm a Christian first, I'm a conservative second, Republican third. The word of God and the word of Ronald Reagan mean most to me. As your lieutenant governor, I will not yield to the other side. I'll work for the other side. But they're not interested in our key legislation passing, and I'm not interested in their key legislation passing. We have the majority. This is our time. So much is at stake. And I'm sorry that we got a little back and forth with Todd. There's a website, Talk is Cheap Texas. It's easy to remember, talkischeaptexas.com. You can go and just look at the record. I'm mystified like Jerry. That's another issue. I look at this election as the most important election we're going to have. We're going to have a new governor, new attorney general, new ag commissioner, land commissioner, controller. railroad commissioner, we're resetting the deck. You need strong, conservative, energetic, passionate, authentic conservatives to lead us in a fight against the Democrats because they built the state, friends. And I disagree with Lieutenant Governor that it's 1-0 us over Wendy Davis. No, she's running. She'll have about $40 million to take on us and beat us over the head for the next year to set themselves up for 2016 and 2018. That's what it's all about. Yes, Greg Abbott's going to beat her, but we're going to take a terrific beating that should have never happened. We're going to have a team to stand strong because if we lose Texas to the Democrats, we never have a Republican in the White House again.
That's right.
The electoral votes of New York, California, and Texas added together. And that, the Democrats have seized on that opportunity because of that night. It would have nenever happened under my leadership and both senators' leadership. Thank you. God bless for your friendships, your prayers. I'd like to have you vote on March 4th and tonight. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner Todd